Welcome to episode 39 of the Pitbox podcast. We are back after a little break, but guess what? We're international now. Don't you worry. We won't go missing for that long ever again. But as I said, a few of us have been doing some traveling. A certain someone here was in Italy for Monza Formula One weekend. You already know what happened. Charles put on a really good drive. The Tifosi went nuts. Us, as incoming Tifosi members, were rather excited. But we had
Yeah.
a guy on the ground who's going to talk us through what it was like being out there, ground zero in Italy. Gartrell, talk us through it, man. First off, give us the rundown of what it's like even just showing up to the Temple of Speed before the race.
Well, it was really amazing to see how many people were coming out. It's like Italy is not a very fast-paced place, right? Everybody's like very much like calm, there's not much traffic, things like that. So like getting to Monza, it just was like a sea of people. So much traffic, so many people like going to this one place, and you can tell like everyone is extremely excited about motorsport there. Everyone's a Ferrari fan, obviously, repping the red heavy, um, fangirling over Charles Leclerc, whatever you name it. It's just like a crazy vibe. I think walking in was like kind of surreal. You walk under the old track, which is pretty cool, I think, to see. And then you're just like kind of like in the middle of it all. You're right there at the turn, the end of Parabolica. There's like helicopters landing. It's like very Formula One-esque, like all the stuff you see on television. The track was insanely cool. It was like it was like a rush of just like emotions for me because I'm like I love this track. I love playing it in the simulator. I love, everything about it. It's like Ferrari fans are crazy. The energy is really high coming into there. Everyone's really excited, and yeah, and I was just a super cool entrance and super cool like getting there and seeing the place, with my own eyes. It was insane.
Let me ask you this though. How
Yeah.
much blood did you wear?
How much red did I wear? Barely any, to be very honest with you. I since you know that we're changing over next year, I still repped heavy Mercedes
Heavy
gear, all
Lewis.
that.
Let them know.
Exactly, exactly, exactly. I did, however, purchase the black Ferrari shirt that they were selling this year because I felt like why wouldn't I, right? Like I'm about to be a Ferrari fan. They got the black colors. That's like something you never see with
Yep.
Ferrari. So I was like, this might be my one and only shot to get it. So let me just cop that. And I was repping a bunch of different teams that whole weekend, but it was definitely come race day. It was all black and Petronas green for me. So um, I was uh I was definitely a little bit of the odd one out, you know what I'm saying? But I think there was plenty of other fans for different teams there, but it was a heavily for everyone around me repping red every single day. It was insane, except for the one bloke next to me. He was actually from Australia, so he was wrecking the papaya, but
Yeah.
we were the odd ones out in our section for sure.
I can imagine seeing the footage from after the fact. You could just see like in the crowds, it was like literally like a sea of red with like
Yep,
little sprinkles of color every here,
yep,
now and then. And the fact that you got that shirt in Italy too, I think also adds to the effect because it's like you went to the track, you bought it in Italy, and you got it the year before Lewis went over. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's like
e-
just adds a little extra to the
yeah.
shirt.
Look, I'm predicting it now, but when Hamilton wins his eighth in Ferrari, I better see a sea of black that day. That's all I want to see. But we'll talk about that next season. We'll see how
Back
he's
with a
doing,
bunch of prancing horses.
Uh-huh. Hmm.
If he wins, we'll.
Absolutely. Yeah. Not looking forward to moving there, but I mean, it's a nice place. It's a nice place. It's a nice place. I like Italy, but it's just I don't know if I could deal with the slowness. They're very calm. It's not New York at all.
Mm.
Okay.
Um,
Now talk us through what it's like watching the race.
yeah, it was
Live.
crazy.
Actually,
So
also, what corner were you at?
yeah, so I was at the exit of Parabolica, so 23, section 23A. That's just before the start finish line, and exactly after, a little after they finally make like they make that like apex outwards towards to hit the. So you're coming down Parabolica, you start wide, you come in, hit the apex, and come back around, and I'm well past where they hit that final apex coming down the street. So you're seeing high speed coming around that corner, so it's really cool to see them all come by like whizzing fast, like it's insane. Um, it was in a decent section. You could get to a lot of the things that they had for people around, whether it be like food and whatnot. Um, and it was amazing to just see go through like not only F1, but to see like the F3 race, F2 race, and sprint. Carrera Super Cup was super cool. Um, and I got to see Kimmy's crash, which was crazy.
Mhm.
George was, I know, so upset about that. He was like, they got the world on this kid's shoulders, and then they put him in his car, and then he's just standing like, damn, he just crashed my shit. Like, excuse my language, but like that was pretty wild to see. Like everybody sprinted to run and go see like the damage and everything, and we're like watching him get out of the car and all this. It was insane. Um, but yeah, really good spot. I would say if you are planning on attending this race, get a covered grandstand. Grandstand was great, but for whatever reason, it was 91 degrees every single day and no clouds in the sky. So I was
Oh,
burning. I was cooked. I was a cooked goose at that race. But um yeah, other than that, I think the race experience from that section was really, really cool. And I did get to walk around a bit, so I did see a couple other parts of the track, but I didn't really get to walk down to like um turn one, or what's the Ascari. Um sad that I didn't get to do that, but I think it was just a little too hot to get to those spots of the track. It's a pretty long walk. It's not for
it's a
the
pretty
faint of
big track.
heart. Yeah, I mean it's 3.5 miles or so is still a long distance to walk over,
Mhm.
So, but also if anyone wants to see some of the footage, I have a YouTube video which I'm sure Steve will throw down somewhere, and you guys can check out like what my experience was firsthand because I did record a bit of that. So
So just to tag in briefly on like
yeah.
the ticket that you bought. So with that ticket that you got for to sit in that specific section, it also gives you the capability to like walk around the track like you were saying and like look at all
Hmm.
the different turns and stuff and access different areas. Obviously, you can't sit in a different section because those are assigned, but you could still like gain access to those places, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's what they call like general admission. And so basically if you bought a ticket for general admission, you can go wherever there's room, so to speak. So it's not a grandstand. It's usually going to be like some bleachers or just a patch of grass where you like, people lay out like a blanket or something and that's where they sit. Some
Mhm.
of those spots have really great vantage points. I did sit on the opposite side, the entrance to Parabolica. So coming down that last straight on one of my practice days, and I did get to see some flybys, and I was a lot closer even to the track I felt. Which I wasn't far in my grandstand seat, but I was even closer, you feel like, to the track when you're in these general admissions locations because they are literally trackside. There's like maybe two fences between you and the cars
Oh wow,
themselves. So that was pretty cool.
nice. As
How
far
much
as
did the
like,
ticket cost? Oh, my bad, Chris.
no, you're good.
It was like 500, I think. I bought a 3-day pass for 500 almost a year before the race. So like as soon as the tickets went on sale, I was just like, yeah, I'm gonna do this. And I and so I bought the tickets and it was not bad. I think that's a pretty decent price. Obviously, like if you went to like, any of these races in the States, you're probably paying that for general admission
Right.
for 3 days. So to get a grandstand for 500 for 3 days is not bad at all. And even in Vegas, like what could you be spending there? Like, right, it's gonna be a
I think
hefty sum.
$1,400 or something like that.
Hmm.
And that's like nosebleed status.
Yeah. Or you're sitting behind a a logo, then you gotta like peek over to I've heard some stories, man, about Vegas, but yeah, not too much, not too
Whereas like
expensive.
So as far as like the track itself and like, you're walking in, like what's some of the most memorable things that come to like the front of your mind? Like when you get there, are you hearing sounds of like the cars flying,
Oh man.
like you're smelling like race fuel, or like you're hearing all the people speaking Italian next to you and it just gives you goosebumps. It's like you're in a different country, like, you know, literally just like scratching the itch of the passion in like a
Yeah.
realm where you've never been before. Um, just like talk us through that.
No, it was pretty sick. Like I think the thing that gets me so pumped every time, like this is my second race I've been to, but going to any track, I think, is when you are like just walking up and maybe you're like you're in the middle of a session or something, but you just hear the cars flying and it just sounds like this like insane sound ripping through the air and you get the goosebumps and you're just like, oh man, and every step you're taking, you're getting closer to seeing the action and it was definitely exhilarating, an exhilarating and like fulfilling experience because you're just like, you hear them crank up, you hear them get on a flyer, you hear them going down the straight, and you can't even see them, but you could just feel it, and it's so incredible. So it was that's like the most memorable thing I felt. Um, both races I've been to, I think it just gets you giddy, right? It's like all the
Take
sounds
that
and stuff you
environment.
hear.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it's the stuff you hear and watch on TV, but then like when it comes alive, it's just like it's like
level.
another level, yeah.
That's awesome.
Mhm. But I think the thing that's gonna always stick with me is like just that view of like Charles Leclerc coming out onto like the podium, the Pirelli podium that's right above the start finish straight, and everyone just singing his name, and you see the red flares going off, and then the sea of red, and you're in it, and it's like wow, like, and you just like looking
Yeah, I
over,
was gonna
and
say, like, where were you for that? Were you, like,
I was in the
on the
middle of
track?
it. Yeah,
Nice.
I did go to the track invasion. So as soon as he won, the girl in front of me started crying, which was insane. She was like visible like
Cheers.
emotions. Everybody was just so so pumped because it means so much to them the fact that he won. And even if he was on the podium, I think it would have just been just as insane. But the fact that he came back and won that race was wild. Everybody was like pushing and shoving to get on the track, and then it was like a sprint to get to right underneath the podium. And it was wild. There was people climbing fences. So,
Oh wow.
like this guy must have been on like on top of like a 20-foot fence, just like sitting there looking like almost like dead in line with like Charles Leclerc, because that's how high up he was. And he ended up coming back out like two or three times because it was just like so much passion and emotion going on. I got really close to the fence of the pit lane, so I got to see the cars even closer than I have. Obviously on track, which was really cool. Obviously, there was some security there, so like you're not gonna hop over and run into the pit lane, but um, it was just wild. Everyone was just singing his
National
name,
anthem, right?
singing the national anthem, chanting Ferrari, Ferrari. It was like wild, just wild.
It's kind of like one of those things where you don't even have to be in the fan and you just want to get hype with everybody.
Yo, I was literally, I mean, I'm sitting there rooting for Lewis and
Or
Mercedes, but I couldn't help but just be like so hype and like join in and all that because it was, like it's crazy to be there for Ferrari
right.
win.
Mhm.
Man. Look, now I'm looking forward to being Tifosi next year. Yeah, I never thought I'd see the day where I'd voluntarily wear all this red, but here we are.
Yeah,
Who would have known?
nah, it's gonna be sick. I think I'm hoping that, like I don't know if you guys saw the Las Vegas Grand Prix, but Hamilton was on form, coming from 10 back to 2, which was insane. Definitely probably could have even won that race if he had a few more laps. Um,
True.
and if the Ferrari's car is any good as good as it's been all season, then I think that we're gonna be in for some spectacular racing next season, from the GOAT. But we'll see when we get there for sure.
Mhm.
Now, let me ask you this: when you were leaving, like,
Mhm.
how long did it take to get away from the crowd out of the track?
True, because that's always
So so the logistics there are a little crazy. I think getting to the track and getting from the track were not the best situations. I probably, if I would have done it again, maybe I would have tried to like stay in Monza so you could like walk the entire way. But there was like it was insane. So like thankfully I wasn't so deep into the crowd that I was like impossible to get out. So I got out, left the track. Um, and it was just like it wasn't too bad at first, but then like all the crazy people that were on the track were starting to like, all right, we got to get out of here. And so we're all
A mad
leaving, and
rush.
it's yeah, it's like a sea of red in this like in lines like on their way out of the park because it's in a huge park area. It's not just the racetrack. It's like you could go like on a picnic there. You know what I mean? Um, but yeah, it was insane. The logistics were wild. I had to wait for a shuttle bus to take me to the train, which was taking forever because they like try to shove as many people into a bus as possible. I was like, I'm not gonna be the sardine. So I ended up like walking to find like a city scooter and just riding the scooter all the way back to the train station, which wasn't that long. It took me like I don't know, like 15 minutes or something like that. But at least I wasn't like dying hot inside of this, bus that
Us
everybody's
with
trying
like
to get on.
bodies pressed next to you.
Yeah, it was bad. It was bad. Like I would be sweating bullets before I even got to the track because I was just crammed in and there was like no AC. That's also something I don't want to get. I don't know why Italy just doesn't have AC in a lot of places, but they
Like a
did not.
Europe thing. Like
Yeah.
Europe just in
Mm.
general is kinda
I'm
lacking.
like, it is hot, sir. Like, you guys need some good
There were
ventilation and air
fans blowing
system.
hot air.
Yeah, it's not even just like a cracked window on the bus, and I'm just like, this is not it, yo, not it. But
They said, "Don't worry, wait until it starts moving."
yeah, such a side note, but it was a little crazy. So if you were attending that race, I would say you could just probably get an Uber or something if you can find one or a taxi or something or your own set of like set up transportation to get you to and from the track. I think that's like um the best plan for someone. I personally probably would not do the bus system again. Or you got to plan to leave earlier than everyone else and get there before everyone else so you could have like a kind of like smooth experience in getting to the track, you know.
Would you say it's like worth it to rent a car and like pay for parking?
Not a bad idea. Because when I did that in Belgium, I felt like maybe it might have been a better experience all around. Because I mean, like I drove in, like there was a little bit of traffic, yeah, but like you're sitting in your car, you're comfortable, and they direct traffic pretty well. I think when it comes to like getting everyone to park, it's only I think like 16 euros a day, which is relatively cheap.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think I wasn't aware of the parking situation there. I'm sure that they had it somewhere, but um yeah, that's probably not a terrible idea. As long as you are prepared to drive down some tight streets, and I mean like
For real.
yeah, but yeah, very narrow. But if that doesn't scare you, then I think you're totally fine. And not all of Italy is like that, especially around Monza. Some streets are, but not all. So
Bro.
yeah.
Okay. Well, overall, it sounds like you had a pretty good experience out there.
Yeah. Yeah, it
Where are
was
you going next?
where am I going next? I don't know. I mean, I have been to London, but I think and in the UK, but I think I probably want to do Silverstone at some point. I think that's
Mm.
another iconic race that I would really want to attend. But I think it's going to be either between that or like the Canadian GP, just simply because of how close it is. The tickets just sell out so quick because everybody's on top of it as soon as it comes through. It's the closest one in the Northeast region,
Right.
so people snag up those seats really quick. So I think it's either between one of those two. Um, Maybe I would do like Spain. But I don't know. I don't know.
Hmm. Okay. I mean, if I could, I would do Suzuka.
Yeah, that'd be sick. But you gotta, the language barrier is a real thing. So like I feel like in going to like Belgium wasn't bad. A lot of people speak English. A lot of people did not speak English in Italy. So it's like really have to be able to get on your own. And I feel like Japan may or may not be that way. It is a wild circuit to visit, and I know it's crazy cool seeing like how hyped they get for it. But as someone who has been to two races, I think that I would probably not want to fly all the way around the world just for that race. I would probably go to a place like I said, like Silverstone or Canadian GP.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Yo.
Speaking
Well,
of London, Steve.
oh yeah. So while this man was at Monza, about a week later, Chris and I went to Goodwood Revival. For me, it was the second trip over there, and for Chris, he basically flew in just for this, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. But let me tell you, folks, I've said it once, I've said it twice, I'll say it one more time. That is the best car event on the planet. Let's cut out like a contemporary race, like actually going to an F1 race or IMSA or IndyCar, whatever. Like just
Mhm.
specialty events. This is the best thing on the planet.
Yeah.
Like when you get there, all right. So first of all, it's like a 2 hour drive from London, which isn't too bad because you're just driving through the English country roads, which is rather pleasant to look at. And then even along the route, like there's classic cars being driven to the event, and then even you stop at the gas station, you have people dressed up who clearly are going working on their old
We're going.
or E-type.
Did you guys dress up?
Oh, absolutely.
Of course. Honestly, I felt a little underdressed when I got there. I was like, Jesus, you guys are like super committed.
Yeah.
They actually have like a fashion show at the
Mhm.
event, so you
It's a
can,
thing.
Right.
yeah, you can legitimately be best dressed, looking like someone's grandmother in 2024. You know.
Was it like it was like pearl necklaces and like old timey dresses and stuff like that? Like they're like trackside watching, and then the guys are like in their race. I think you were wearing like a old time race suit, right? Like that's what they would wear.
So I had the
And
mechanic suit with
yeah, mechanic suit.
the
You
fancy.
had people dressed with like suits on, town hats, like they had the eyeglass that with the little
The monocle,
hanging
I'm
over your
crying.
ear. There was a
Yeah.
gentleman that had the pipe hanging out the side of his mouth. You had gentlemen with cigars, three-piece suits on with like, you know, the button tie and like the polished shoes, even though it was raining, which is crazy. You had
Mm.
women in heels, and we were walking through mud. Like the commitment level was something I've never seen before. Steve,
I'm saying, and then also people were dressed like cowboys also, which is pretty cool because for the
Wow.
Brits, like they see E-types and all the other European stuff pretty regularly. They're actually there to see the Cobras, the GC40s, the
right?
Galaxies, and stuff. But yeah, like just from a fashion perspective, like I've never really seen a show like that because any other
Mhm.
show, you even if it's a retro event, like you come dressed in your normal clothes. But the fact
Hmm.
that people go this hard to dress like their grandparents is freaking crazy, And then um they Chris didn't get a chance to experience this because with the weather and the time frame and stuff, but they also have a whole lot of different shops. So they're selling like leather jackets that look like you could be in a Tuskegee Airman practically. Uh,
Wow.
if you are a big baller, I remember last year, maybe it was DK Engineering, maybe it was their setup or it was someone else. They had on the stand a V12 Ferrari block and it was a wine holder. So every
Oh
section
no.
was a wine holder on the
That's insane.
Ferrari block. I've never felt so poor in my life.
A different type
Yo,
of wine cellar.
what kind of wealth is this? Where did you even get that from? Who came up with this?
Mhm.
Who do I have to talk to?
I like the creativity.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's crazy. So like they sell all sorts of stuff at the event as well. And then you get to the actual on-track action. First off, where are you seeing some of these real vintage race cars with real history that are worth hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars being raced around the track sideways like it's Spec Miata or a go-kart race with some of the best drivers on the planet participating, and it's ridiculous. Like they are literally sideways
It's like
every
10
corner.
tenths.
Every
They're not
corner.
they're not letting off. They're driving like they're actually trying to win the race. This is not like a parade lap where everybody's cruising around in fifth gear and you're just like, hi, everybody. No, they're like in the zone, full power rotation, like all four tires going sideways with the crazy body roll because suspension was not what it is now, then obviously.
Mm.
And like, like Steve was saying, it's like all these cars that you see, you barely see people even like take these out of the garage to like, knock the dust off the motor and let it breathe a little bit. These
Yeah.
guys are like going hard and like they're in the pits, they're working on the cars. You get to walk around and actually see like the drivers. You can see like, the pit crews and stuff. At some point, we ended up getting lucky enough to meet some really nice people that actually gave us their pit pass. So
Wow.
we got to experience something that we originally weren't anticipating on, which made it just that much better. We got to get like up close with everything. We saw some like old 356s, Porsche 904s. We saw a 906, and like Steve was saying, a bunch of E-types, whole bunch of different type of Jaguars. I mean, a lot of stuff that I've never even knew like really existed like that, let alone raced. Like I saw some Alfa Romeos that I don't really see that often. A bunch of stuff, just like how Steve was saying, like they get excited over the American cars because they don't get to see those often. It was interesting for us to see all of their, kind of vintage cars that they used to race that we don't normally see here in the States unless somebody imports one, for example.
So what were your favorite like your top three favorites for each of you that you saw there, or something? It could be something that like I want to know about the stuff that maybe like I've never seen or never like thought was out on the streets ever, or if it was just something that was really common that you thought was really well executed. I don't know. What were each of yours?
Steve, you want to take this first?
Yeah. I'll actually cheat and give like 2 years worth of stuff since this is my second time going. So
Mm.
last year, watching Jackie Stewart drive his Terrell F1 car from back in the
Wow.
day was ridiculous. And then like he walked past me, I was like, oh my God, there he is.
Fun
Uh,
fact, he was at Monza this year.
he's
So that's cool.
around. He
Yeah,
gets around.
he got around. Yeah.
Yep. And last year, the 250 bread van, the Ferrari, it's so cool because I don't know the full history of the car. That's the only one I've seen like that. But it's like a 250 hatchback, which is
Wow.
crazy. So you know the value is absolutely stupid. And then what else did I see last year that I would have? I think one of Adrian Newey's E-types was in it. So it's a little controversial because he be doing some things that aren't necessarily period correct.
Mm,
But it's Adrian Newey, so he knows what he's doing. And then
yeah.
we put, I think last year, like maybe Karoom Hanchak was driving, and yeah. um, but there definitely was. I think I did see a 250 GTO last year as well. Oh, and last year they did a Carroll Shelby tribute. So there was a bunch of GC40s, Cobra Daytona.
Wow.
All right, all right, we're gonna do this. So yes, Jackie Stewart's Terrell, the Cobra Daytona, because there's only 6 of those on the planet, and the fact that there was one there being driven around was obscene. And then yeah, 250 GTO, yeah. So that was
Okay.
three from last year. For this year, I'm gonna go with there was a 250 short wheelbase that I really liked. Joe Macari, like that dealership in London, brought it. Then there was Jimmy Johnson and either Dario or Marino Franchitti. Franchitti. I want to say actually it was Dario was driving. They were in either a DB4 or DB5 that was blue with like the white lipstick. It was absolutely fire. Uh, so that's two. And then the third one, let's see. There was a GT40 that I really liked. Like that would be my dream is to drive a GT40 around Goodwood. That
Hmm.
just seems like
That was actually at the top of my list.
yeah. Um, I'm gonna go with those three. Yeah,
Okay.
it's just absurd the amount of wealth that's there. But yeah, we're gonna go with those three.
Solid list. I'm honestly, I don't think I've seen any of those in person before, so that's pretty. I've seen GT40s obviously, but not like a rare like Daytona
Oh,
GT40 or anything like that.
Or like racing.
Yeah, yeah, and that
Really.
especially right.
Hmm. I would say for me, at the top, aside from the GT40, it would definitely be seeing Jimmy Johnson like race, in the like the Cobra, if I'm not mistaken. Just because, of course, we met him at Watkins Glen. Like we got to take pictures with him. We got to get super, up close and personal. And just to see him like in a completely different side of the planet, doing the damn thing, I think is pretty cool. Uh,
Hmm.
aside from that, I think it was also pretty cool to actually see some older 356s like on track racing. That is something that you don't see. You hardly even see those things rolling around in the States, really. Like unless
Hmm.
you're going to like, Monterey Car Week or like, some super vineyard vines kind of spec, car. It's like, people are trailering their stuff in,
Vineyard
you
Vines,
might
I'm
catch them
crying.
like turning it on and rolling it in or off the trailer, but you don't ever see them race,
Hmm.
let alone getting like tire marks and like, you know, bug guts and all the stuff that you get from driving a car really fast.
Hmm.
Uh, aside from that, I kind of hinted at it, earlier on. I really enjoyed actually seeing both the 904 and the 906. And I also enjoyed actually seeing those cars race because you could really actually see, you know, what weight distribution does on the older cars more easily than you can in the modern stuff because they do such a good job of hiding all these things with
Hmm.
electronics and different type of engineering, I guess, to minimize the amount of body roll and you know basically, for example, in a front wheel drive car, dial out the understeer and allow it to rotate just with suspension geometry and different types of tuning. But on the older cars, obviously that the technology wasn't as advanced. The mid-engine stuff, you could really see like some of that understeer if they tried to get on the gas too soon exiting the corner. In
Hmm.
comparison to like some of the Shelbys, um, and some of the other cars where they were allowed to, and the E-types and stuff, they were allowed to get on the power much sooner because it's, front engine, rear drive, you can get it to rotate out, and accelerate kind of power out of the corner and stuff like that. So seeing all those things. And then, we actually got to ride a trolley around the perimeter of the track, which I think is like an underrated feat. I feel like it's underrated because you actually get to see the cars racing from all the perspectives that you can potentially get from there, aside from being in the inner portion. And then of course you're also seeing like all the people that you pass. There's a bunch of vintage cars that were actually driven to the track, like Steve kind of led us into in the beginning.
Cool.
That you don't
Hmm.
normally see. Like these guys, like they're legit. Like they drive their cars, and it doesn't matter if it's from the 40s or the 50s, or if there's one of 500, or if the car is
Mhm.
$300,000. Like these guys are outside in the rain, getting mud everywhere, wiping the glass with like microfiber because it's fogging up because, defrosters weren't really a thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The commitment level was just at such a high, and the energy was at such a high level that it's just like
Mhm.
it was commendable, and it was humbling, and it just affirmed like, hey, listen, for us, no matter how difficult or challenging or mundane something can be, if you have passion behind it, you find a way to like make it happen. It doesn't matter. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Just like being exposed to all of that was truly something else. And the people that we met as well definitely made the experience much better. Steve can kind of chime in. We met a gentleman actually on the trolley, where he ended up coming from New York. Like I believe he lives on Long Island, and
Wow.
Steve actually went to go see him at
Wow.
like you meeting
Nice.
people like all across the globe. Um, it's truly something special, and I think that any person who's into like the culture and cars, and even if you're not like super into it, and you just want to go to a place where there's just a lot of good energy, you know, with the people dressing up, like it's an experience for everyone. It's not just like, okay, we're gonna watch cars drive, around the track a bunch of times, because I understand what it's like for the non-car person and how, they could potentially process things. Um, but it was enlightening because, like I said, it's something that everybody can actually get an enjoyment out of,
Mhm.
because it's about more than just the cars. You know what I mean? Not to
Yeah.
sound cliche or anything, but I know we use that line fairly often, but the reality is true, and it doesn't change.
Yeah, like Chris said, we met someone who actually races vintage cars here at home, and so he started a conversation with Chris, and then they were like, "Oh, well, you guys look kind of young. Like, how did you end up here?" So he points at me, because apparently I'm the source of everything, and so then, we started talking, and he gave me his card. He was like, "Oh yeah, like we're having an event at Lime Rock when this weekend. You definitely should come by." And I
Mhm.
was like, "Well, why not? Like, let's see what's going on." So I went up to Lime Rock, and yeah, sure enough, they're racing vintage cars around the track. There's a vintage car club. uh, they had like literally they had pre-war cars that they were driving around the track. I mean, like someone pulled out a Bugatti I've never seen before,
Mhm.
and it
Wow.
looks exactly how you would think as a very old school original race car. And he was telling me the history of the car and a few of the other cars that were there that, like I said, were legit pre-war race cars. It's like they all had this badge on it. Uh, it was like some automobile club, but
Mm,
it was pre-war automobile club, which is crazy. And then, of course, like they had some of the newer stuff, which of course is
right.
not new, but compared to a pre-war car, it is newer. Whether it's Porsches that you would expect to see, 911s and 912s, a few Alfa Romeos, a few old school Lotus, MGs, and yeah, it was just a good time. Like it's not Goodwood, of course, like nothing will be Goodwood, but it gets the job done.
Yeah.
That's
Might have to go check that out.
You should definitely come. And Mary, honestly, you already know how I feel like I'd like to come to. It's just a matter of
For
orchestra
sure.
schedules and stuff like that. But I know I went off on a little bit of a tangent, and I named slightly more than three specific things that I enjoyed. But one last thing that actually made it special that just came to the front of my mind was the rain. You know what I mean? Like, Steve can tell you, he went last year. It wasn't raining. The
Hmm.
sun was bright. It was hot outside. It's nice. But to see these guys, right, racing in these cars with some of them no roofs and barely a windscreen. Like, we're talking about like something the size of, a 16-inch MacBook monitor in front of them just to prevent like rocks from flying in their eyes. Okay.
Yeah.
To
Like
see
a
them
SP.
racing, right, in the rain with the rooster tails and watching the cars, them struggle for traction because they're actually using similar tire compounds and setups to what they actually used back then. Like they specifically, I guess, partnered with some of these tire manufacturers to get like that same kind of big sidewall, like typical wavy tread pattern. So it was just cool to see everything in the rain. Now, obviously, walking around in mud wasn't super exciting, and like I wore boots, so I was a little bit more prepared compared
Hmm.
to the other two friends that we went with. But like we ended up just making the best out of it, and it turned out actually more amazing than what we had originally anticipated. Because obviously you go and it's like, okay, pouring, right? Everybody's all tight next to each other. We all hugging our umbrellas. The wind is whipping sideways and you're getting wet, and it's like you try not to let it affect you. You know what I'm saying? So
Hmm.
it's just, every potential variable that can add to the experience was exactly what happened to us this year. And for me, Steve didn't mention this, but I did it super like, guys, I bought the ticket the night before at like 9:30 at night. You don't understand. I was on God's timing. I was like, Lord, if you want me to be there, I will be there. And he was like, you know what? Go pick up the ticket from this restaurant that's like 5 miles away from this guy that you met on the internet, and you'll be fine. And that's exactly what happened. We got up an hour early. Went to the restaurant. I met the gentleman, gave him the cash, got the ticket, and I was happy as a kid in the candy store. Talk about like buzzer beater / like hold your breath the entire time. Because mind you, I flew to a different country to specifically go to the event that I just told you about, but I didn't get the ticket in advance. Explain.
Yeah.
Somehow, some way it managed to be that way. I didn't plan to not buy the ticket, but we won't talk about that any further.
Hey, but look, next year we plan on going both Saturday
Yeah,
and
we plan it like from now.
yeah, as opposed to just Sunday. For me, like I think the way I was able to navigate last year by myself, I was able to see everything that I wanted. But as the group continues to expand, I have to acknowledge that a little bit more planning has to go into it. So next year is definitely going to be 2 days. And yeah, they will be seeing me again and again and again because, like I said, it's the best thing ever. Goodwood is its own planet.
Mhm.
Of course, at some point, we'll have to be there in the summer for Festival of Speed, which is
Right.
an entirely different type of event. But for the
Right.
time being, Revival is going to have to see me like indefinitely. But hey,
So what?
go
Real
ahead.
quick,
Yep.
real quick. What's the biggest difference between Festival of Speed and Revival for those who just don't know?
So, Festival of Speed is essentially the hill climb for I can't remember if they call him the Duke of something, but pretty much like the basically like the owner of Goodwood. They do a
Hmm.
hill climb in his driveway, and they bring a whole bunch of modern supercars. They will have some slightly older race cars there as well, but this is really about the latest and the greatest. So like
Gotcha.
new race cars, new supercars. They actually do drifting now. Like Mad Mike will come out, Ryan Turk will come out, uh, and yeah, like they just have all this crazy stuff. But that's a modern event that's focused around all the new stuff, whereas Revival is a retro themed event where the newest car is like 1965 or
Right.
68. It's something like that. And of course, like we said, everybody's dressed up like their grandparents.
Mm.
But that's the main differences between the two. And Goodwood does have more events throughout the year. Like they have members meetings where they actually race the older cars periodically, like throughout the year. Uh,
Hmm.
but Revival is the main event.
And they're also like two different track locations. Like the Goodwood
Mhm.
Revival is like its own track location and its own track setup. And then Festival of Speed is like its own thing. Like they're associated, but they're actually not that close to each other.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
Mhm.
I don't know where this guy's driveway is, but it's pretty baller to have a hill climb at your
In your
driveway.
backyard, yeah,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah, exactly. But like we said, definitely recommend that everybody make that journey at least once. It actually surprises me like how many people, even when I went to Lime Rock, who are actually into vintage racing, hadn't been to Goodwood Revival. I'm like, bro, this is like the best thing ever. Your boy over here runs a freaking a trip like pretty consistently over there. Like you guys got to go,
Mm.
but. Hey,
Enthusiasts or not, honestly, like this is something that anybody can enjoy. That's what makes it, even more special, I think.
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. But with that, we appreciate you guys listening. We're back on the scene. We promise it won't be such a long break this time. We have some guests coming up over the course of the winter, a few drivers, and recently I had a pretty cool trip that we will be talking about as well. But that's all for us tonight. Pitbox Podcast. Appreciate you. See you in the next one.
Peace.